how can you lose when you're doing you?
It's a marathon. You're at 109 right now.
Pictures up, audio is up. Welcome to another episode of Bored in Los Angeles. Today's episode of Bored in Los Angeles will focus on a Wikipedia article, one that I found interesting today. I decided I'm going to read the article. I'm going to record myself as I read, audio and video. So if there is another interested party who goes online, such as yourself, and you find my video about this particular topic, you will have a video and an audio recording to accompany the Wikipedia page. So you're not left just reading it on your own, which you may enjoy, but I often find myself enjoying reading with audiobooks, listening to the stories as I'm reading. Books and audiobooks accompaniment. Anywho, with no further ado, let's get into today's topic. Today's topic relates to Japan. Now, personally, I've been to Japan many times. I probably have been to Japan more than 20 times up until this point in my life. And I've loved every experience that I've ever had in Japan. And I love returning to Japan for the reasons of culture, food, cleanliness, just all around a wonderful experience. History, okay? But there's a soft underbelly. There's another side to Japanese society and history, culture, etc. that, of course, isn't highlighted. This article that I'm going to read today, well, it's going to highlight one such instance, a part of Japanese history now, that is pretty grim. With no further ado, let's get into it. Today's topic is the story of the murder of Junko Furuta. I'm reading from the Wikipedia page. It says, Junko Furuta was a 17-year-old Japanese high school student who was abducted, raped, tortured, and murdered. Her abuse was mainly perpetrated by four male teenagers: Hiroshi Miyano, 18, Joe Ogura, 17, Shinji Minato, 16, and Yasushi Watanabe, 17, and took place over a 40-day period starting on the 25th of November, 1988. In Japan, the case is known as the concrete encased high school girl murder case. I'll try to read the Japanese romanization. Joshikose Konkurito Zume Satsujin Jiken. It's called that because her body was discovered inside a concrete-filled drum. The prison sentences served by the perpetrators ranged from 7 to 20 years. The brutality of the case shocked Japan, and it is said to be the worst case of juvenile crime in the country's post-war history. Background. Furuta was born on the 18th of January 1971 and grew up in Misato, Saitama Prefecture, where she lived with her parents, older brother, and younger brother. At the time of her murder, she was a 17-year-old senior at Yashio Minami High School. She worked a part-time job at a plastic molding factory from October 1988 to save up money for a planned graduation trip. Furuta accepted a job at an electronics retailer where she planned on working after graduation. Furuta was well liked by her classmates and teachers, having high grades and infrequent absences. According to her friends, she dreamed of becoming an idol singer. The perpetrators of the murder were four male teenagers: Hiroshi Miyano, 18, Joe Ogura, 17, Shinji Minato, 16, and Yasushi Watanabe, 17, who in court documents were referred to as A, B, C, and D, respectively. Tetsuo Nakamura and Koichi Ihara, both 16, were referred to as E and F. The four main perpetrators had each dropped out of high school in the summer of 1988 and became involved in organized crime as chinpira, low-ranking yakuza. They began using Minato's family home in Adachi, Tokyo, as a hangout. Beginning in October, they engaged in crimes including theft, purse snatching, and car theft, assault, and rape. On the 8th of November, the group abducted a 19-year-old woman in Adachi and gang raped her in a hotel there. On the 27th of December, during Furuta's captivity, the group abducted another 19-year-old woman in Adachi and gang raped her in a motel there. Kidnapping and abuse. On the evening of the 25th of November, 1988, Miyano and Minato rode around Misato on their motorcycles with the intention of robbing and raping local women, and spotted Furuta, who was on her way home from her part-time job. Acting on Miyano's orders, Minato kicked Furuta off her bicycle and fled the scene. Miyano, under the pretense of witnessing the attack by coincidence, approached Furuta and offered to walk her home. After further gaining her trust, Miyano walked Furuta to a nearby warehouse and threatened her, telling her that he was a yakuza member and that he would spare her only if she followed his orders. That night, Miyano took Furuta by taxi to a hotel in Adachi, where he raped her. He later called Minato's house and bragged to Ogura about the rape, after which Ogura told him not to let Furuta leave. In the early morning hours of the 26th of November, Miyano took Furuta to a park near the hotel where Ogura, Minato, and Watanabe were waiting. They told her they knew where she lived and that the yakuza would kill her family if she attempted to escape. Minato agreed to allow Furuta to be confined in a room on the second floor of his house in Adachi for the purpose of gang raping her. Furuta was held captive for 40 days. On the 27th of November, Furuta's parents contacted the police about her disappearance. To discourage further investigation, the kidnappers forced Furuta to call her mother 3 times to convince her that she had run away but was safe and staying with friends. When Minato's parents were present at the house where she was being confined, Furuta was forced to act as his girlfriend. The group dropped this pretense when it became clear that Minato's parents would not report them to the police. The parents later claimed that they did not intervene because they were afraid of their son, who had been increasingly violent toward them. On the night of the 28th of November, Miyano and the others, along with Nakamura and Ihara, gang raped Furuta, after which Miyano shaved her pubic hair with a razor and used a match to burn her genital area. In early December, as punishment for an escape attempt, The group repeatedly punched Furuta in the face, and Miyano burned her ankles with a lighter. They forced Furuta to dance to music while naked, masturbate in front of them, and stand on the balcony in the middle of the night with little clothing, and inserted objects into her vagina and anus, including a metal rod and a bottle. They forced her to drink large amounts of alcohol, milk, and water, smoke 2 cigarettes at once, and inhale paint thinner fumes. In one attack in the middle of December, Furuta was beaten by the group on the pretext that Miyano had stepped on a puddle of her urine, after which he burned her thighs and hands several times with lighter fluid. From around this time, Furuta, unable to bear the repeated assaults, would sometimes plead to be killed by her captors. Throughout the rest of December, the severity of Furuta's abuse continued to escalate. By the end of the month, she was severely malnourished after being fed only small amounts of food and eventually only milk. Due to her injuries, she became unable to walk to the downstairs toilet and was confined to the room's floor in a state of extreme weakness. Her appearance was disfigured by the beatings, with her face swollen to the point of unrecognizability, and her wounds had started to emit a foul. On the 4th of January 1989, after losing money in a game of mahjong the night before, Miyano decided to take his anger out on Furuta. He ignited a candle and dripped hot wax on her face, placed 2 shortened candles on her eyelids, and forced her to drink her own urine. Furuta was lifted and kicked, fell onto a stereo unit, and began a fit of convulsions. To prevent them from being stained with blood, the group covered their hands in plastic bags before beating her with their fists and an iron exercise ball, and dropped the ball on her abdomen several times. Miyano poured lighter fluid on Furuta and set her on fire. She made weak attempts to put herself out, but soon stopped moving. The assault lasted for about 2 hours, after which Furuta died at 10 a.m. Less than 24 hours after her death, Minato's brother called to tell him that Furuta appeared to be dead. Afraid that their crime would be discovered, the group wrapped Furuta's body in a blanket and placed it in a large travel bag, then put the bag in a metal drum and filled it with wet concrete. At around 8 p.m. on the 5th of January, the group drove to a vacant lot near a construction site on the island of Wakasu in Koto, Tokyo, and dumped the drum there. In early 1989, Miyano and Ogura were arrested for kidnapping and gang raping a 19-year-old woman in December 1988. When police interrogated Miyano, he wrongly believed that Ogura had already confessed to Furuta's murder and that the police were aware of this. So, he told them where to find her body. The police were initially puzzled by his confession, as they were questioning him about a different gang rape. The drum containing Furuta's body was recovered on the 29th of March, and she was identified via fingerprints. Minato, Watanabe, Minato's brother, Nakamura, and Ihara were also arrested. Trial and reaction. The identities of the defendants were sealed by the court, as they were all legally juveniles under age 20. Journalists from the Shukan Bunshun tabloid uncovered their identities and published them, arguing that the accused did not deserve to have their right to anonymity upheld given the severity of the crime. In July 1990, all were found guilty and sentenced by the Tokyo District Court for abduction for the purpose of sexual assault, confinement, rape, assault, murder, and abandonment of a corpse. All 4 appealed. In July 1991, 3 were resentenced to longer terms by the Tokyo High Court. Hiroshi Miyano was originally sentenced to 17 years in prison and resentenced to 20 years, the longest sentence typically given in Japan, short of life imprisonment, which had been sought by the prosecutor. Miyano's parents sold their family home and paid Furuta's parents 50 million yen, about $350,000 then, today about $830,000, in compensation, which their son's defense presented as a mitigating circumstance. A court-ordered psychological evaluation at the trial established that Miyano had a learning disability that did not impair his brain function, but delayed his emotional development. After his release in 2009, he changed his last name to Yokoyama. He reportedly boasted about his Yakuza connections and involvement in pyramid schemes. In 2013, Yokoyama was arrested on suspicion of bank fraud and placing scam phone calls, but remained silent and was not charged. Joe Ogura was sentenced to 5 to 10 years in prison. He was released in 1999, changed his name to Kamisaku, and began working in an IT position. In 2000, Kamisaku married a Chinese woman and moved to Chiba Prefecture, but divorced after a few years and returned to his mother's home in Saitama. He lost his job after his past became known to his colleagues and again became involved in the Yakuza. In 2004, Kamisaku was arrested for assaulting Takatoshi Isono, a 27-year-old acquaintance whom he thought was involved with a girlfriend. He shoved Isono into the trunk of a car and drove him to his mother's bar in Misato, where he assaulted him for 4 hours. Kamisaku was sentenced to 4 years in prison for the crime. After his release in 2009, he relied on welfare and lived alone in an apartment in Saitama, where he died in an accident on the 16th of July 2022 at age 51. While on psychiatric medication, Kamisaku collapsed, got his head stuck between the toilet bowl and a tank, and choked on his vomit. Shinji Minato was originally sentenced to 5 to 6 years in prison and resentenced to 5 to 9 years. His parents and brother were not charged. After his release in 1998, Minato moved in with his mother. In 2018, Minato, then unemployed, was arrested on suspicion of attempted murder after striking a 32-year-old man in the shoulder with a metal baton and slashing his neck with a knife on a street in Kawaguchi, Saitama, during a dispute over a vehicle parking spot. In 2019, Minato was sentenced to 1 year and 6 months in prison, suspended with probation for 3 years. Nabi was originally sentenced to 3 to 4 years in prison and resentenced to 5 to 7 years. He appealed the verdict to the Supreme Court of Japan. His appeal was denied in July 1992. He was released in 1996 and lived in an apartment with his mother in Tokyo. By 2005, Watanabe had developed a neurodegenerative disease but did not have money to treat it. He died in May 2021 at the age of 49. Tetsuo Nakamura and Koichi Ihara, who had raped Furuta but did not participate in her murder, were released from juvenile detention by 2000. From the time the case was first reported in the media, the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department, the investigating body, received many calls and letters from the general public demanding that the perpetrators be severely punished, including life imprisonment or with the death penalty. The Tokyo Public Prosecutor's Office, which had sought life imprisonment for Miyano during the trial, was criticized for not seeking life sentences for the other perpetrators, nor seeking the death penalty. The Tokyo District Court also received numerous calls and letters which criticized the perceived lightness of its sentencing. A majority of legal professionals surveyed by the Asahi Shimbun newspaper said that the sentences were appropriate based on precedent. In the Nagoya couple murder case of 1988, another case, for example, a case which drew comparisons to the Furuta case, the Nagoya District Court had sentenced the main defendant, a 19-year-old male, to death, and a second defendant, a 17-year-old male, to life imprisonment in June 1989. Hiroshi Itakura, a professor of law at Nihon University, commented that the difference in sentencing was explained by the difference in the number of victims, 2 in the Nagoya case versus 1 in the Furuta case. Under the Nagayama standard, the death penalty in Japan is rarely applied in cases with 1 victim. Itakura also stated that the prosecution in the Nagoya murder case had demonstrated clear premeditation, while in the Furuta case, the intent to murder was more uncertain. Furuta's funeral was held on April 2nd, 1989. During the ceremony, one of her friends delivered a eulogy written by her classmates, which stated, "Jun-chan, welcome back. I never dreamed we would meet again like this. You were subjected to such cruelty, weren't you? You went through so much, didn't you? I'm upset with myself that I went on living, unaware of what was happening. You were always so gentle and cheerful, Jun-chan. The happy we made for the cultural festival looked wonderful on you. I'll never forget that. We will absolutely not let Jun-chan's death be in vain. As we step into adulthood, we'll strive for a world where such heinous crimes no longer exist. We'll do our best keeping Jun-chan in our hearts and pushing forward. The principal even brought your diploma. Thanks to this, all 47 of us in class 3-8 were able to graduate. Jun-chan, there's no more pain or suffering now. Rest peacefully. Farewell, Jun-chan." Furuta's intended future employer presented her parents with the uniform she would have worn in her position, and it was placed in her casket. At her graduation, the principal presented her parents with her diploma. The location on Wakasu, where her body was discovered, is now an industrial zone. And lastly, dramatization. The event, her murder, and the event, the 40 days that she was captive, was made into a film called Concrete, which was released only in Japan, in limited theaters, and only soon after on DVD. So It's available if you're Japanese, but it's not. It was too horrific a story for it to be publicized and marketed, promoted like a regular blockbuster. In a moment, final thoughts. First off, thank you for watching this video. And if you happen to find the Wikipedia page and you followed along, I hope this reading of the text helped you. Certainly an interesting story, incredibly sad, horrific events, just mind-numbingly disgusting behavior on the parts of the perpetrators. As a human being, I guess it's a crazy, morbid fascination with stories like these. Thank God I haven't experienced that. Wouldn't experience it. Wouldn't want to perpetrate anything like that on anyone else. But it was interesting to learn about. Very sad indeed. That's it. That is the story of the murder of Junko Furuta. Again, these are interesting stories about a wonderful country that has a soft underbelly. On to the next story, I guess. Please be kind to one another. Peace and blessings. This is Bored in Los Angeles. Reading stories like these, I guess, is kind of a way to beat the boredom. Peace and blessings.
How can you lose when you're doing you?
It's a marathon. You're at 109 right now.
October 9th, that's where it starts.
You see, it's the same old thing.